Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Prince Automation Destination. This side Prince. I hope you are doing well. So in our last lecture of chain test report series, we discussed about chain test report integration with TestNG, and we covered two type of reports, simple and email report, with the help of simple and email generators. So in case you want to understand how to integrate chain test report in TestNG and how to generate simple and email reports, I would request you to please check out my previous video, which I'll be sharing in icon. And today let us discuss about ChainLP generator in TestNG. So what is ChainLP? ChainLP is a client server type of generator. So here what we have is we have a Java Spring Boot based server which packs Angular frontend and is distributed in the form of Docker image, right? So in order to generate ChainLP report, we will have to create the server in one dedicated machine, which is going to be one-time effort. So Docker images is provided here, and 0.0.6 is the latest version as of today. So ChainLP is a framework component which provide historical analytics. But how does it provide this historical analytics? With the help of database. So whenever we'll be creating the container, so we'll be pointing to one database. So this database could be any RDBMS database, right? So for now, we'll be pointing to S2, which is a in-memory database. But whichever server you'll be setting up this particular ChainLP, at that server you should have MySQL, PostgreSQL, or any other RDBMS database, right? Now corresponding to above databases, meaning if for example we want to create a container and we want to point to a respective database, right? So what the developer has done is he has provided the docker-compose.yaml file for H2 database, MySQL, and PostgreSQL. So with the help of docker compose command, we can simply create the container and we can up the server, and we can utilize that server as a dashboard for the reports. So we will try to understand all these things, right? But before that, I just want to show you the documentation from the developer admin, right? So ChainLP is a server which packs Angular frontend and is distributed as Docker image, right? So this is what he has mentioned. Currently supported databases are H2, MySQL, and PostgreSQL, but most of RDBMS should also work, right? So if you want to, because he has provided the Docker YAML file, Docker compose YAML file, so we can simply clone this and we can navigate to this particular folder, and using this particular docker compose command, we can make this particular server up, right? So what I'll be doing is, in my case, I have already cloned it, right? I'll be simply open CMD. So if you will notice here, we have multiple YAML files, right? Before we go here, I just want to show you how the docker compose file look like. So we are using docker compose version 3, right? So in docker compose, we can define multiple services, because the purpose of docker compose is to initialize multiple containers. But in our case, it is going to be one container, and as we need to create a container, and along with that we need to provide some configuration, so it's better to use docker compose, right? So this is H2. So this is H2 related configurations, right? In environment section, this is image name which we are going to use, which developer has provided. This is the container name that we have defined. Then we need to do some environmental settings. So if you take a look at spring -profiles and -active, this is equal to H2, because we are going to use H2, which is in memory database, and it need not to be installed, right? And this is database URL. This is same as JDBC connection. So this is JDBC connection, and this is the location where the data would be stored in container, right? This is the class that we need to point to, and this is the mapping between the container and the host. So host is going to be the machine where we are going to set up the server. So in my case, it is going to be local host, right? And in my machine, 80 would be my port and 180 is container port. So this is how they will be interacting, right? Right now, in order to create the server, meaning in order to use ChainLP, actually, first of all, Docker should be installed, because we need to create container of this in order to set up the server, right? And after Docker installation, Docker should be running and DB should be installed, or we can use it as a service in Docker compose file. So using database as a service in compose file is not recommended, because if that container is killed, then at that time it would be challenging to recover the things and we will lose the data, right? Meaning we will lose all the data, right? Now ChainLP server should be set up, right? So Docker should be installed, Docker should be running, and DB should be installed on the machine where we are going to set up this particular ChainLP server, and then we'll have to up this particular server with the help of Docker compose file, right? So I have already copied this particular command from here. I mean, from the documentation, docker compose hyphen docker compose h2.yaml file. This is the file name, and we can use up, right? So as soon as I'll hit this, right, I should be able to create the server. Before that, I just want to show you, this is my Docker desktop, which is running because I'm using Windows machine, right? Now I'll be hitting this and let us see. So it will pull the image, the latest image, right? And it will create the server. So this is the Spring Boot server as we discussed, right? So we will wait for one welcome message, right? Started ChainLP. Now we can access the dashboard. So how we can access the dashboard? We can simply localhost and 80, or we can simply hit a localhost as well, right? So far there is no project because this is we are setting the meaning server fresh, right? So this is fresh server, that's why we are unable to see it. But in real time, this is going to be one-time activity, and everyone in the organization will be able to access it, right? Now let us come back here, right? So the thing is, we can run the ChainLP server with the help of docker compose command, because docker compose has everything. Another way is we can use docker run command, but here we'll have to provide all the configuration options, whatever we have provided in this particular file, right? Now we have set up this server. Next thing is we need to configure ChainLP generator in the framework, right? So I'll be copying these settings and will be pasting into chain test.properties, right? So this is the details for ChainLP. I'll simply copy it, right? And I'll be going to chain test.properties, right? And what I will be doing is, so for this ChainLP generator should be enabled, and this is ChainLP generator class it will be pointing to, and the local host is because we have set up the server locally, so it should be localhost. So wherever the setup would be done, meaning wherever the server will exist, we'll have to simply point to that particular server by providing the IP address of that, and then we can execute this particular test case. We are simply going to execute it, right? And let us see what will happen. So let us go to this particular dashboard. As test case is executed, we should be able to see the result, right? So we got the result for first build, right? So as we discussed that NLP is used to maintain the history. So it maintains the history for multiple builds, right? Here we can see the matrices, right? So this is duration of first build, right? This is test growth meaning how many test cases are there in first build, right? Now let us execute it once again and try to validate the dashboard once again, right, to verify that it maintains the history. So I'm executing the test cases once again. Okay, so let us go to the dashboard once again and see the report. So we are able to see the report for the second build as well, right? So here if you will go, we are seeing the second build result, right? And if I go to matrices, here you will see that first build took this much time and second build took this much time, right? So this is duration, this is test growth. So there is no test case variation between build 1 and build 2. This is important matrix when we want to track the test growth. So suppose in first cycle we executed 10 test case, in second cycle we executed 20 test cases, so it will keep track of that particular growth, right? So this is how it maintains the history. Also, ChainLP server can be utilized as a common dashboard, right? Meaning, for example, in one organization, there are multiple frameworks that want to utilize ChainLP, right? Or chain test report along with ChainLP generator. So what they can do is they can utilize ChainLP generator in their machine, in their framework, and they can simply provide their project name. So let me change it here, right? But in real time, it would be the real project. So what I'm doing is I'm going to execute it once again, right? And to show you, let me execute it first, right? So the execution is going on. So now if I go to this particular dashboard, so I should be able to see the second project as well. So this particular dashboard can serve as a common dashboard for the management or for the stakeholders, from where they can check the health of each project. So this is how it is helpful. So these are the benefits of ChainLP generator. It provides common dashboard. It provides real-time data. For example, we are executing 10 test case. So if the first test case is executed, so first test case result will be published here. So we'll be getting the real-time data. We maintain the history as well, so we can check the trend, right? So these are the different benefits of using ChainLP, right? Now we have done all these settings, right? So how to handle screenshots, right? So for that purpose, I just want to go to that source demo flow, right? And I'll be making it as an intentional failure, right? So if, for example, I will execute this test case, then let us see what will happen. So in this case, screenshot won't go to ChainLP server. So we'll try to understand why. So if I open first of all simple report, right? So in simple report, we'll be able to see the screenshot, right? Because the screenshot is getting stored in this particular resources, right? While in case of ChainLP, right? In case of ChainLP, we need to send this particular screenshot to the server. But how we will send this particular screenshot to the server? So let's try to understand what does it mean, right? So we'll be using S3 actually. So we'll try to understand what is the need actually. So in case of simple generator, screenshots are stored locally. So the report can point to the screenshot under chain test/resources folder, right? For ChainLP, screenshots need to be stored on some central storage because we need to send the screenshot to the server and server should point to that location, right? So as this is a client server architecture, right? So server should point to some location. So for now, we can store the screenshot either on S3 bucket or on Azure Blob because these are the two cloud storage services which ChainTest is supporting, right? And for now, S3 bucket is fully implemented. For Azure Blob, the development is going on. So we will be focusing on how we can utilize S3 bucket, right? So let me first show you from the dashboard, right? That for failed test case, we didn't get the screenshot, right? So let me see. So this is the build, right, which we executed. So here, if you'll see, we don't see the screenshot, right? Because it is unable to point to the screenshot because we haven't even stored the screenshot somewhere at some central location. So let us try to understand how we can configure S3 blob for screenshot failure locally. Meaning, first of all, we'll have to do the configuration locally, right? And then we'll have to do the same configuration at the ChainLP server, right? So first we'll have to create the S3 bucket, then we'll have to get the access key of AWS account and we'll have to store them locally for the usage purpose. Then we will configure these credentials either in environment variables or we can configure it into AWS folder, right, which would be under C users, right? And this is the recommended approach, right? So once this setting is done, then we'll be enabling the storage option in the chain test properties. So this is the property, right, to enable the chain test storage service, and this is the bucket, right, meaning the service that we are going to use. If it is Azure Blob, it is going to be Azure-Blob, but if it is AWS, then it is AWS-S3, right? And this is the bucket name that I have already created. So I'll be simply showing you, right? So with these all configuration, so when we will execute the test case and if there is a failure, so with these configurations, screenshot will be stored or uploaded to S3 bucket, right? So let us go to Amazon Workspace portal. So this is my account, right? So you need to first search S3 service, right? Okay, and you can click on this, right? So in my case, I have recently visited, so I'm clicking from here, right? Here I have already created one bucket, right? And if I go inside this, there is no item so far, right? So what we need to do, we need to click on create bucket, right? It could be general purpose, right? So we'll have to keep it general purpose, right? Then we'll have to provide globally unique name, right? So it should not be like matching with any other name. Like it should not be, it should be unique, I mean, right? So we need to go with the recommended settings, right? Block all public access, right? And then after we need to simply click on create bucket, right? So this is first step that we discussed. Next is we need to generate the access key so that we can access this S3 bucket from outside, right? Okay. So for that purpose, I'll be going to this particular section and we'll be going to security credentials. And here you will see this particular section. You need to click on create access key. And then after you need to click on this and you need to click on create access key. And after that, this access key will be generated, and along with access key, secret key will also be generated, and you need to use this particular reason as well, right? So in my case, I have already stored it, right? So this is the access key, right? And this is secret key and this is reason, right? Now the next thing is we need to configure it, right? So in order for IntelliJ to use it, right, so we can either configure it in IntelliJ runner, right, or we can put it into .aws folder, right? So .aws folder is a recommendation, right? This is how chain test automatically take a look, right? So these are the properties that we need to provide. So what I'll be doing is I'll be simply going to this particular thing, right? So this is AWS access key, right? So what I'll be doing is I'll be going to IntelliJ, right? And in this runner, right, so I'll be clicking on edit configurations. Here I'll be clicking on environment variables, right? I'll be first clicking on this and then I'll click on this. First I'll add the key, right, and then I'll add the value, right? In your case you need to generate your own, right? And S3 is very cheapest service, right? So you can utilize it. And this is also one-time activity, right? So let me copy this access key as well, and then we need AWS reason as well, right? We'll provide AWS reason here, right? Okay, now we need to click on apply. So we have made the configuration, right? Now the next thing is we'll have to enable the options into chain test as well, because we have to let chain test know that we are going to store the screenshot for ChainLP on this particular location, right? So for that purpose I'll again go here, right? So these are the storage related things, right? I'm simply going to copy it, and now I'll be navigating to chain test.properties, and at last I'll simply add it here, right? So chain test storage service, we need to enable it, and as this is AWS S3, so we can use AWS S3 here, right? Then we need to provide the name of S3 bucket. If I'll go to this particular thing and if I come back, so this is the bucket name. So let it load. So this is the bucket name that we need to provide, right? So I'm simply going to click on this and I'll show you that there is nothing so far, right? So now what I will do is I will simply provide this particular container name here, right? Now we have done configuration locally. So with these steps, now when we will execute the test cases and if there is a failure, it will be able to push the like screenshot onto the remote machine, meaning onto the S3 bucket, right? But we'll have to do the similar configuration in the ChainLP server as well. So we'll have to navigate to settings section, and then we'll have to configure access key, secret key, and region, as like we did here, right? So how we can configure, right? So I'll be going to ChainLP server, and here you will see somewhere settings option, right? Or you can simply provide settings here, right? And then after you need to click on secrets, and here these are S3 related things, right? So what I'll be doing is I'll be copying this particular secret key, access key first, right? Then I'll be copying secret key, right? Make sure that you're not picking the spaces along with the keys, right? And this is going to be the reason, right? And I want to show you one thing. So I'm just inspecting it and going to network. So when we'll be clicking on save, if you will notice that this payload, right, is getting encrypted. So we don't need to worry about how this data is being sent to the Spring Boot server, right? Okay, so now we have done the settings, right? So what I will do is I will re-execute this particular test case and see whether we are able to push the screenshot to the S3 bucket, and from S3 bucket ChainLP server is able to point to that or not. Now let us go to ChainLP server and see. So we got third build, which is 24 seconds. I'll simply click here and I'll wait for the result to upload. So we see that we are able to see the screenshot, right? So if I, for example, go to second build, which was also a failure, right? So in that case, there was no screenshot. While if I go to third build, right? So I'll be able to see the screenshot, right? Okay. Now I want to show you the screenshot on S3 as well. So I'm just simply going to reload it. If you'll notice, there is one screenshot stored, right? This is the same screenshot which we are able to see there, right? Okay, so we can download it and we can view it. Okay, so this is how we can store the screenshot in ChainLP, right? So this is what I wanted to cover, guys, as part of current lecture. Thank you for watching. I would request you to please like, share and subscribe. Thank you once again.